for the Impact 30 and the cleaning services tender. And as Fran already introduced us, we got Deborah Tate on the call who will be talking about Impact 30 tender a bit, Andrew Whitehouse covering the cleaning services, and I'll be covering the sort of generic procurement slides and a little bit of information about HIE. So yeah, I'm going to go through quickly about HIE and NIH, then Deb and Andrew will cover the tender requirements, and we'll cover the tender response, scoring methodology, and some general information and advice, which you hopefully will find useful. And this session will be recorded, and I also will upload the link to Public Contract Scotland, so you can get hold of the link of the recording there as well, and also the slides. So Highlands and Islands Enterprise, HIE, we're Scottish Government's Economic and Community Development Agency for the north and the west of Scotland, and we cover a large area. We're covering more than half of the landmass of Scotland, and we're home to 440,000 people and 19,000 businesses. If you wish to find out more about HIE, you can use the link in the webinar slides, and you can find out what other support we can offer to you, maybe as a grant, and what other tender opportunities we may have. Our vision as an organisation is that we build a prosperous, inclusive and sustainable economy across the entire region, attracting more people so they can live here, work, study, invest, or of course visit. And we're ambitious for all parts of our region, based in our we base our vision on a successful, productive and resilient businesses. We want to push that agenda, of course, to have a strong, capable and resourceful community around us, and to have good conditions for growth and green recovery, which is very up to date nowadays. We've got a procurement strategy, which recently has been updated. You can follow it via this link, containing our mission statement, which is to conduct all our procurement processes in an open, fair, inclusive and transparent manner, so we can demonstrate value for money, since we're spending taxpayers' money, and that we can embrace innovation and the principles of sustainable procurement. We also have corporate social responsibilities. You will see later on some questions in these two tender documents as well. Our key priorities are transition to net zero Scotland and community wealth building. The Northern Innovation Hub is covered by the Highlands City Region deal. This is a project which is supported by the Highland Council, HIE, the University of Highlands and Islands, and of course the UK and the Scottish Government. The Northern Innovation Hub aims to ensure that higher skilled and better paid jobs are created, sustained, and that we encourage young people to move or to stay in the region. NIH has got some key sectors that they want to promote as life sciences, tourism, food and drink, and creative industries, and young people and technology being a sort of additional, more like overarching strand. And that is where Impact 30 sits, where it's very, very relevant. NIH is supporting SMEs to innovate and to grow through the delivery of a number of targeted interventions. And because it's financed by the Highland Council, part finance, the services are to be delivered across the Highland Council area. Note though that for Impact 30, at the moment we envisage that we get some extra funding from HIE, so we could expand the programme. So it's not just the Highland Council areas that we envisage that we will cover. And if you want to find out bit more about it, there again, there's a link to the Northern Innovation Hub's website. I'm going to give Deb now the opportunity to talk a bit about her tender, Impact 30.
The Impact 30 programme, which was formerly known as 30 Under 30, has the aim of providing support to ambitious young entrepreneurs within the HIE area in order to develop their skills and capabilities. By doing this, the aim is that those entrepreneurs will be better equipped to grow sustainable businesses and be successful. The first phase of Impact 30 commenced back in 2018 and it's due to come to an end this summer. Originally, it was designed to cover the Highland Council area only, but the programme has now been expanded, as Camilla said, for the whole Highlands and Islands enterprise area. The programme has already supported a total of 98 young startup enterprises to progress their plans. Looking at the scope of services, which you'll find on page 2 of the tender document, the aims really are the provision of intensive support to participants over a period of a year. This is to be delivered largely through a digital model, although there will be some face-to-face components. And it's offering a range of topics which are considered crucial for all enterprises and entrepreneurs. Having said that, the range of topics is to be bespoke, so provision is to be tailored to individual needs so that they can build on their strengths and address any potential weaknesses they might have. The focus of the programme is on young entrepreneurs, so generally under the age of 35, working in an enterprise less than 3 years old in a position where they have the power to make decisions. There's a target for this 3-year programme of assisting 177 enterprises, but I would like to stress that the focus needs to be on developing and sustaining the enterprises successfully rather than focusing purely on quantitative measures. And on the next slide, we can have a quick look at the programme targets. By the end of the 3-year period, we expect the supplier to have achieved the following targets. As you can see, these have been proportioned into the Highland Council area and a figure for elsewhere within the High region, and then a total given. These targets will be reported upon by the supplier and monitored by ourselves within High and will be reviewed as required. That really concludes my brief summary of the tender. If you have any questions at all regarding it, please do put these to us via PCS. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew is going to cover the cleaning services.
Thanks, Camilla. As Camilla mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, High has offices occupied by staff throughout the Highlands and Highlands region, and this tender is requiring a competent cleaning contractor at various sites to contribute towards safe, compliant, pleasant working environments for staff, tenants and visitors.
The next slide, I'll cover this one. It's just a little reminder still for the background that we got lots for the cleaning service. We've got 6 lots. 1 to 5, we're procuring them in an open competitive process, so anyone can bid for it. You can find these tenders openly on PCS, and lot 6 is going to be done via a selective process, a quick quote, and the reason being is that we're using the small lots exemption of the procurement regulations. It is because of its value mainly, so it satisfies all the criteria as we are required by the regulations. We have a restriction on the number of lots you can win. You can bid for all 1 to 5, but you'll be only able to win the maximum of 2 lots. We got a long section in our scope of requirements about how you can work out your lot preference order and how we award them. So if you bid for more than 1 lot, it's good if you familiarize yourself with it. And lots 1 to 5, that is where we apply the restrictions. Lot 6 is already restricted, if you like, to those bidders who've been invited. So that's our Ochtertyre office. So I'm going to give Andrew back the opportunity again.
Thanks. The scope can be summarised into 3 sections as covered in the published tender documents and appendices. Routine cleaning, which is a major part of our business as usual infection control procedures, as well as contributing towards the maintenance of the offices. Periodic cleaning, as per the cleaning frequencies and tables, including things like window cleaning and high-level cleaning, and compliance tasks, which assist High in delivering its office compliance regime. The main 2 elements of this are Legionella compliance and fire safety checks. The compliance activities are covered in more detail on this slide. Legionella compliance programme. All offices have Legionella risk assessments undertaken for each premises, which are regularly reviewed, and these set out the framework of the measures that are required for managing Legionella in the offices. The main 3 tasks that are covered under the cleaning tenders are weekly flushing of little used outlets to reduce the risk of Legionella infection, monthly temperature monitoring of hot and cold water supply systems, and quarterly clean and descale of shower heads where they're fitted. Each tender document lists out all the different outlets and all the different facilities that are within each office. The other part of the compliance activities covered under the tender are fire safety checks. This includes weekly fire alarm tests to ensure that the fire alarm activates in the event of a fire, and working through various manual call points. Monthly visual checks of portable equipment to check for obvious defects or missing parts. Monthly check of external exits to check for obvious defects and ensure correct operation. A monthly check of internal fire doors to check for obvious defects and ensure correct operation. The main thing that we're trying to get across here is that full instruction on each task will be provided by High, and where necessary, utilise external training providers, such as our alarm maintenance provider, to ensure that all cleaners are upskilled and have a good understanding of the reasoning and the task that's to be carried out. All records must be maintained in the site logbooks and provided by High on a routine basis. And really, these tasks are an essential part of the contract to contribute towards High's compliance regime. Some general key considerations under the contracts. Each contract will be managed locally day to day by the individual office contact, and High Facilities Management team will act as the point of escalation. The contractors will provide routine compliance records to Facilities Management envisaged quarterly. Contractors must ensure suitable provisions for quality management and supervision. High Facilities Management team based in Inverness will undertake periodic cleaning audits, and the local office contact will also score performance periodically. The contractors must ensure that absence cover is restored at all times to ensure no reduction in service provision. That's both for planned and unplanned absences. Flexibility will be required in service contracts to take into account office occupancy changes. High's moving forward to hybrid working, as many other organisations will be, and the cleaning contracts will require flexibility if we look to increase or decrease scopes within certain areas of offices. The health and safety element of the contract is really essential, and all contractors must ensure that they have arrangements in place, in particular in relation to COSH and lone working. Cleaning staff are the key holders for the offices and therefore responsible for implementing close-down procedures each evening, including things like shutting windows and doors and locking up and setting alarms. And finally, contractors should ensure that they read and familiarise themselves with the government buying standards for the procurement of cleaning products and services, and ensure that they comply with mandatory criteria in these standards.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to talk about your tender response in general. So the two tenders got slightly different timings. On the slide, you can see the key dates in red. Those are the ones that you may wish to put in your diaries, just as a reminder of the obvious one is a tender deadline, but also the last date to request clarification. So you can use PCS's anonymous Q&A facility if you're unsure about anything, whether it's a tender document, your actual response, or you need some further information. Please do ask and maybe don't make assumptions. So just remember those dates, because after that you won't be able to ask questions via PCS. And please, as always, don't leave your tender submission to the last minute, because we don't accept any late tenders. Julie will cover this one. This is a single procurement document. That's a key document that you'll have to submit. It's actually now done online via PCS. It's a built-in module, so it's not a new Word document. It has got an information-only section about company name, size, and generic bits, and it's got a list of pass-fail questions, mainly around exclusion and selection criteria. And I would like to highlight for the cleaning tender that we require basic disclosure Scotland certificates for your cleaning, anyone who's basically involved in the cleaning task. So that's to be answered under question 4A.2. And because these are pass-fail criteria, if you can't meet any of them, you will not be evaluated further. Evaluation of the award criteria for the Impact 30, first of all, it'll be based on price and quality. Price has got 35% weighting, quality has got 65, adding up for 100% value for money. And we've broken the questions down into 6 different questions as per this slide. We got pass-fail question on cybersecurity, that's a separate response form. And then we got some sort of usual questions on delivery methodology, risk and challenges. And we also ask for some community benefits. We have got an Excel spreadsheet you can submit and complete. Price will be assessed using your completed pricing pro forma, which is another document. For the cleaning services tender, it's slightly different. We got 40% weighting on price and 60 on quality. We got a bit less questions and no cyber security. And I would like to highlight that we got a pass-fail question on the payment of the real living wage. More information on this is in the scope and also your response form. And again, pricing pro forma will be used to evaluate your price. So the bidder response forms, these are the forms online or not that you will have to submit as part of your bid. The SPD is online. Both tenders have got an award criteria response form. You can keep it in Word or PDF it. Both of them got pricing pro forma. If you could please send it back in Excel, that would be great. The Impact 30 has got a community benefits response form and also cybersecurity response form. Both have got a Fair Work Practices response form, that's a short Excel form. Both have got forms for signature. You can either print it out, sign it, scan it back, or you can use electronic signature. And if you think it's necessary, you can submit an FOI annex. Information about what is required there is towards the end of the scope of requirements document. Please return these as separate files because they'll be used at different stages, and only include pricing information in your pricing pro forma, please, nowhere else. And for the cleaning services, if you're bidding for more than one lot, please submit these for every single lot. You probably noticed by now that these are done as separate contract notices so you don't get mixed up. So complete the forms for every one of them. We've got different panels, so just please do so. And as always, your response form just tailor it to the relevant lot. So in your award criteria response form, we got questions that cover a number of different areas. They will help us understand how you will meet our requirements. And we got weightings. These will indicate the importance of the question. So some have got lower weightings, some got very high weightings, and we got maximum page limits. Please do adhere to these because anything above these will not be evaluated. And if you already had a look at the response form, just start drafting your response. So A, you've got time to do it. B, if you've got any questions about your response or the tender documents, you've got time to ask these and digest our answers as well. You can ask about the scope, you can ask about T's and C's, page limits, anything. And just note that we can't accept any questions or qualifications raised after those deadlines I showed a couple of slides ago, and that includes those regarding to the terms and conditions. For Impact 30 tender, we have got a question on community benefits. These are contractual requirements which deliver a wider are actually part of our weighted actions. So you'll earn points for it, basically. If you could please submit your community benefits response form. It's an Excel spreadsheet. It's got various headings, various topics with drop-down options. You always have other. You may have thought about community benefits. We haven't. And for your Impact 30 tender, we have got a mandatory community benefits to support the young person's guarantee. So we want at least one community benefits, either in the topic recruitment and training or in the educational one. And in total, we need minimum 6 community benefits and at least across 3 headings. If you need further information on community benefits and also fair work practices, there is a document called Community Benefits and Fair Work Practices Guidance, as well as you find information and various links in the scope of requirement. And a key thing to remember for community benefits that these must relate to this tender and be identified for this contract. It's not something that you're already undertaking as part of your, say, core business. Oops, I went too far, sorry. Just a couple of examples, probably not going to be too surprised. So they've got themes around recruitment and training where you could, for example, offer some graduate placements, or you can upskill your subcontractors. You can do donations. You can do in-kind support or advice. You can offer anything around equality and diversity. So it's up to you, and you can always use other in the drop-down menu if you feel like you've got something else to offer. So fair work first around social values is relevant for all of our tenders, really. because Fair Work is central to Scottish Government's priority for sustainable and inclusive growth. And as now we're getting out, hopefully, out of this pandemic and going into a period of economic recovery and renewal, Fair Work will be even more important, and it must be at the heart of employment practices. So we expect all our suppliers to adhere to Fair Work practices. If you submit your Fair Work practices response form, it's a non-scored question, except for the cleaning, of course, having the real living wage as a pass-fail. You can declare what sort of good things you're already doing. That can be around, just a few examples on the slides: investment in your workforce development, no inappropriate use of zero-hour contract, flexible working, and the list goes on. So this is something that we will monitor as part of our contract management procedures anyway. So for the cleaning services only, the payment of the real living wage as defined by the Living Wage Foundation, that is mandatory to all individuals who perform the services. And in your response form, your Fair Work practices response form will capture if you have any accreditations and to check that you're still maintaining these throughout the contract. So scoring methodology, just very generically, they're ever so slightly different for Impact 30 and the cleaning services. For Impact 30, we're using a pass-fail question for cybersecurity. The pass criteria as per the slide will be that you basically are okay in terms of cybersecurity, and the various questions fail if you can't meet those basic requirements. And the remaining questions will be scored by the panel. So sorry, I should have said that the cybersecurity will be assessed by a cybersecurity expert. The remaining other questions will be scored by our internal panel on a 0 to 4 scale. So you can familiarize yourself with the criteria. That's on the slide. I'm not going to read it out. And the panel members, they will score independently, and you'll get an average score from everyone. And if you want to see some worked examples, just refer to the scope of requirements. The cleaning service is just a tiny bit different. We've got pass-fail, but this time it's on living wage and not cybersecurity. And the remaining questions will be scored on the usual 0 to 4 scale. The price for the cleaning services, you'll have different pricing performance for each lot, and it's the procurement team who will do the scoring. It's basically done as explained in the scope of requirements using an Excel formula. And please note that both quality and price, the scores are automatically calculated in Excel, so they'll be rounded up or down to 1 decimal point, so they may not totally exactly align. And also, just a reminder for both of them, please, in terms of price, make sure that you don't exceed the maximum stated budgets for your relevant lot or for Impact 30, because we can't accept any bids that exceed these. They'll be considered as non-compliant if you exceed the budget. So some general information and advice. I'm sure a lot of it goes without saying, but just in case, make sure, first of all, you read all the tender and contract documents, and always keep an eye out for any queries raised via PCS. You can check it when you get the automated alert on PCS, or you can just log in for the Q&A section and download them in one go, and just check if there's anything that you think that could be useful for you. And everything that we clarify there is contractual and is relevant for everyone, but you may have already figured most of it by then anyway. Deadlines, if you put the deadlines in for the queries, that would be great, as well as for your submission. And do please use the anonymous Q&A facility, so we won't find out who asked the question. Go through each of the question in the response form, identify the key points, so you can start drafting your response. And always remember that every question is evaluated in its own right. So your answer to question 1 can't be, please see question 2. If you write your draft response, make sure you stay within the stated page limit, so we don't have to disregard any part of your bids. And as I mentioned before, for the cleaning services, each lot is evaluated separately, and it has got its own documentation, so please use those. It's always handy to get someone else to read your response, see what they think, fresh pair of eyes, ask how they would score it. It's always handy to get someone else to a second opinion. be wary of cut and paste, and make sure, especially for the cleaning with the different lots, that you tailor your response to high and to the right lot as well. And we can only award scores on what you put on paper or PDF or Word. We can't use any existing knowledge, so please respond fully to each question and allow plenty of time to upload your tender response. There's always something last minute of a rush, and especially with the SPD being an online module, you won't be able to complete your submission on PCS until that's finished. So it's important that you leave enough time for that. If you're late, unfortunately, you will be excluded. Or whether you win or not, we will provide you with feedback if you passed all the selection exclusion criteria, so you proceeded to the evaluation stage. So hopefully that will help you improve your bid next time, even if you were successful. Just a reminder that for the cleaning services, we do have site visits next week commencing 25th of April. So for the various dates and timings and locations, just please refer to the scope of requirement. And if you wish to participate, just drop us an email as per the instruction, and Andrew will be on site guiding you through. And my last slide, I've got loads of links to various hopefully helpful sites like the Supplier Development Program site, the Supplier Journey, where you can get more information either on bidding or especially community benefits and fair work practices, what to put in your tender, or if you just want to just learn a bit more about these things. And if you have any questions regarding any of the tenders and after this meeting, just please use PCS as always. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today. It's really good to get an insight from the actual buying organisation of what they're looking for, and to give you some hints and tips on the tender process. What I'm going to cover is actually how to use Public Contract Scotland, or you'll hear it called PCS. Show you the screens for registering on the site, and then how to find the opportunity from High, and then the practicalities of bidding for the opportunity. We'll also cover a little bit about the actual other uses for PCS as well, so just not always focusing on the High one. So you're probably familiar with it already, but just in case you aren't, PCS is basically an advertising portal which is used for contracting opportunities. Now, most buying organisations in the Scottish public sector will use this. So if you are registered here and set up for alerts, then you should find virtually all of the opportunities coming through there as adverts, unless they come through as a quick quote. And we do have a slide on a quick quote which we'll come up with, we'll talk about shortly. So the good thing is it's free to use for yourself and for the buying organisations. It's something that's funded by the Scottish Government, and you can set up alerts so that you know, you can see everything that's coming through that's relevant to your business. There will also be subcontracting opportunities, may be advertised on here, and you can actually narrow down your search functionality if you want to do that to just look at subcontracting opportunities. So you can be involved. It depends where you are in the development of your business. You may not be quite ready yet to bid for a public sector contract. You can see from what High were telling you there, there is a fair amount involved. You know, there's lots of things for you to complete, and so therefore, you know, you may think not quite ready for this yet, but you can either work collaboratively with another organisation and put a joint bid in, or you might decide that there might be subcontracting might be more suitable for you at the moment. So the whole point of PCS really is so there's openness and transparency when it comes to running procurement, so that it's a competitive process. So let's look at how you register. Now, as you can see here, and I'm going to just try and reduce this panel out of my way. So you can see up here on the top right hand corner, circled with the orange, is a register button. There is also free registration here on the left, And you find that with PCS sometimes that there's 2 or 3 different ways of accessing the same information. So basically click on either of those, and it then asks you if you want to register as a supplier, a buyer, or a prime contractor, if you want to advertise subcontract opportunities. Now, clearly in this case, you will be registering as a supplier. So when you click that button, it then asks you for various bits of information, and they are very straightforward. There's really nothing there that would cause you any difficulties. What I would say is when it comes to putting in your email address, and you've got your email address here, depending on what size of organisation you are, you might, if you're a large organisation, you might want to choose an email address that's a generic one that can be viewed by many people. So like tenders at, or public sector at, or info at, or something like that. If you use a person's name and that person leaves, then obviously you will then stop getting alerts, and the PCS can't communicate with you. So it's just one thing to bear in mind. Also for quick quotes, there's nothing stopping you setting up 2, 3, 4 users. But if you do that, then the organisation, when they're looking to invite you for a quick quote, they won't know which one to use. They may choose the first one on the list, and that person may be on holiday or may have left your organisation. So that's why I recommend that unless there's just 1 or 2 of you, that you actually use a generic email address. And also, it's fairly fussy about your password, but you can see there, 8 characters long, must contain a letter and 1 number. Okay, so it won't let you save the password anyway unless you've got the criteria right. And then you just save it and submit, and that is you. So once you're registered, what's next? So normally the first thing that we advise suppliers to do is to go into the suppliers area. You can see up here, and if you scroll down, you'll see there's a supplier finder portal. The reason that we normally advise to do this first is that the buyer won't be able to see you until it's switched to publish. So when you first register, it defaults to unpublish. And that's because it's blank. So therefore you need to fill this information in, and there's more than this is just the top of the page. So you fill your supplier finder profile in, and once you're happy with it, and you can actually preview it, once you're happy, then you click publish. So in this case, if you are new to PCS or new to public sector bidding, and you're really just keen to get on with this tender, then you don't need to do this right away. You don't actually need your supplier finder profile to be able to bid for the high opportunity, and it's something you could come back to later on once you've finished this. So there is a section in there, and it's got quite a lot of characters available to you, where you can put your company description in. And a little tender robot there at the laptop thinking with a cup of tea. So you can see what sort of things you've got to think about is what services do you provide, or what goods do you provide? Think about what as well as where. So you could say Central Scotland, Highlands and Islands, across Scotland, but you know, be clear about where your services can be provided. Do you have any accreditations or any awards that you've won? You put them in. What experience have you got? Who your customers been? Now, obviously, you don't want to put anything in that's going to contravene GDPR, but if it was organisation names, that would be fine. And you could put feedback that you've had, or ratings. If you do service evaluation, you could put that kind of information there. And then you've got to think, what is your key sales message? So what is it about your organisation that you think makes you stand out from everybody else? Okay, so that could be environmental, it could be your fair working practices, it could be an innovative system that you use. You know, what is it about your organisation that makes you stand out? Okay, so using PCS to find opportunities, you would go into this top bit here, search notices, and you can they just come up, everything comes up. Now there's far too many to scroll through, so what we usually suggest is that you either use keywords, or I sometimes put buyer name. The good thing is you don't need a star or anything like that. You can put a parts word in and it accepts that, and it's got a really quite good functionality there for searching. You can also go search, narrow down by looking at the notice type. So you've got contract opportunity, or a future opportunity, or a contract award. And just so you know, in case you are searching for other things, sometimes if you want to maybe see, for example, the previous generation of this contract, then you might want to click include archived contracts and see what comes up. And then you just hit this button down at the bottom, search notices. So for example, in this one, I had put the buyer name Highlands, includes Highlands. And you can see here, I've got the Highland Council, as well as the Highlands and Islands Enterprise. I changed the drop down to current opportunity, and then that's all I did. And I clicked search, and these came up, and the clearing services one, all of the different lots came up there. So basically what you would then do is you just click on the title, and that takes you into the detail of the advert. So once you click there, you then hit record your interest now. Once you click that, you can actually see all of the documents, but it used to be there was a documents tab along here, but now you actually have to record your interest before you can see that. Now, before you even do that, you can click these different tabs and you can get more information. So for example, if you want to find out, is this for me? Then you might be able to do that by just looking at the full notice text, and you can read more detail there. But don't worry, if you record your interest and later on you decide you're not going to go for it, you can withdraw your interest. It's not a problem at all. So it's not that you've got to bed once you've hit that button. It just means that you will be alerted to any questions or answers that come through, and any sort of changes to documentation, etc. You'll get an email to let you know once you've recorded your interest. And once you've recorded your interest, you can also download the documents. Another thing to note is once you have expressed interest in that submarine type button, you can then go to your interest list. So it's in your suppliers area, interest list, and it will be logged there. So the good thing is you don't have to search for it every single time. So when you're coming in to work on it, or have a look, or download more documents, or look at the Q&A, then the quickest way to do it is go to your interest list. You click on the title, and that takes you to the full advert. Just quickly then, something else, other things you can use PCS for. When you set up your alerts and you get these through on a daily basis, or whatever you choose, don't worry if you've seen something in your email and you've deleted it, or you can't quite remember. If you go into recent alerts, you can see absolutely everything that you have been alerted to. And then you can decide in here, you can manage them if you like, so you can just go in and either have a look at them and decide it's for you, and if it is, leave it, and if it's not, then you would delete it. And it's up to you, or you can just leave them there, but you can just scroll down because it's by date anyway. The other thing you can do, you can search buying organisations, so you can either narrow down, filter it out by sector, or you can just choose all sectors. You could put the name of the organisation in there, or part of the name. So just say you just want to do Highland. Let me show me everything that's got Highland in it, or show me everything that's got Island in it, show me everything that's got Glasgow in it. And then you can just have a look there, and it just means you can find out more about the buying organisation. There is a profile there. There'll be a contact or a name and email address. And there is also future opportunities and current opportunities. So if you were interested in a particular organisation, you can have a look and see the sort of things that have come up in the past and the things that are live at the moment. So it's just lots of different ways basically of seeing the same sort of information. There's also an information section there where there's lots of different information which will be updated all the time by Scottish Government. I just want to point out there is this forward plan down here, and the forward plan is framework opportunities where you've got Scotland Excel, or Scottish Government, or APUP, and it will tell you when they are due for renewal, so you can see those at a glance. There's also other things like if you want to see regulations, you know, if you were interested to think, oh, what are these public sector regulations everybody keeps talking about, then there's a link there to that as well. And there's also some videos that were put in place to help people with PCS. The good thing I think about PCS, it is really quite user friendly, but there is a very good help desk. You can email them or you can give them a phone and they'll help you out. So we've talked about quick quotes. Basically, this is a function on PCS usually used for the lower bands in terms of value and risk from buying organisations. You will obviously only ever be invited if you are on PCS. So you must be on PCS, and not only that, you must have your supplier finder profile clicked to publish. If it's not clicked to publish, then the buyer can't see you. And I refer to quick quotes like the submarines of procurement world. So there's lots of them going on, but you don't know about them because you'll never see them advertised. You'll never see a contract notice for them. It's only the suppliers who are invited to quote that will ever know that these quick quotes are going on. So you must do your supplier finder profile, and just to let you know, there is a separate webinar for quick quotes. The actual process itself isn't really that different. It depends on the buyer, how complicated or straightforward they make it and how many questions they ask. In fact, I did one that was just exactly like a tender, and there was nothing quick about it. So it really just means that you don't have to respond to an advert, but you're invited, and it should mean that there's a smaller number there, so you've got a higher chance of winning that from a quick quote. Right, so let's get back to the high tender. So some of this has already been mentioned, but we'll just cover it all anyway. Download all of the documents. Save them to a folder. I usually create a folder with, so I put I'd call it high cleaning and also the date that it closes in my folder name. And that way, every time I look at that folder, I know exactly when it's closing. And then within that, another folder called high tender documents. And then you can, when you download them, you can save them into there, and it means that you can keep going back to that as you need to. What I do when I'm reading through them is I have either a piece of paper or my notepad, or you depends how good you are or how much you prefer working electronically. But I just put the key things as I'm reading through. I write down the key things. So what do I need to complete? What are the instructions in terms of number of words or pages? What is the closing date for questions and the closing date and time for the tender, and anything major? So for example, I usually write down like the quality price ratio and what the quality questions are, whether it's an open tender, a single stage or a two-stage type document tender as well. So just write down these key things, and it just means that you don't have to always go through all of the document stuff like, oh, when do the questions close? You know, you'll have all of that there to hand. The specification is a key document, or there may be more than one specification documents. And again, what to do is write down the key things, and especially if there's something in there you think, oh, that's unusual. For example, there was something there about being disclosure checked, I think, if my hearing was right, that you don't always have to have that for cleaning contracts. So, you know, you may want to note that and think, right, so everybody has to have a bid, no bid decision process. So if you feel you're not meeting any of the requirements, not all of the requirements, then either what I suggest is you ask a question to, to say, is this absolutely mandatory because we've not been asked for it before, or you can decide, is it something that we can have in place if we were awarded the contract? We don't have to have evidence of it now. But basically with the specification, either I go through and I use the highlighting tool on Word to highlight key things and put comments into myself, etc. And the reason you do that is exactly what Camilla said there, is it's got to be absolutely written for high. It's not avoid the cut and paste, avoid generic responses. So by reading their specification and understanding what is really important to them, then you will be making this tender very, very specific and tailored to them. So once you've completed the documents, review them. Ideally get another pair of eyes to have a look at them, because if they're seeing them for the first time and haven't been involved in the writing process, they will pick up on things that you haven't picked up on. Just little hints and tips for writing your bids. If there are questions there with bullet points, use the bullet points to form your headings. Headings are your best friend when you're writing a bid, because it guides your evaluator through your response instead of just one great big response and they don't know whether you're moving on to another topic or not. I also like lead-ins. So on a paragraph, you would put, say, for example, qualifications, and then you can have a dash or a full stop, and then you would talk about the qualifications of your staff or whatever. And it just means that I think people nowadays it's quite difficult to keep your attention focused for very long. And so therefore what you're doing is you're actually helping the reader by saying, I'm now going to tell you about qualifications. And it just, I think, helps the reader to stay focused and read everything that you're telling them. It's very easy to make assumptions about either what they're saying in the spec or about what the question means and what they're asking for. Don't assume things. If it's not obvious, or there's two different ways of interpreting it, then ask the questions, because it's important that you get the clarity. So once you have written your response and it's been reviewed and you're happy with it, then it's time to upload those documents and save them. I always do it a day before, even if that means I've got a late night that night, because I just absolutely hate the pressure of submitting a bid on the day, just in case anything happens, and it could be anything. I actually had an incident recently where a new broadband provider was digging up pavements outside and they cut off my broadband. So I had no internet, and luckily it was the day before the bid was due in, but it was the day that I was planning to put that bid in, and I was up to high-do, I can tell you. So if that hadn't been the day of the bid, I would have been really in trouble. So just don't do it. Asking questions. So as we've heard there, the buyers are open to questions. All buyers are open to questions. They would much rather, if there was any ambiguity at all, get it out in the open at this stage, so that when it comes to the contract situation, there's nothing there that's that people have got different interpretations of. Remember that questions you ask will be answered and visible to everybody. It definitely is not viewed negatively if you ask questions. In fact, I'm always glad to get questions as a buyer, because A, it means I've got interested parties, and B, it gives an opportunity also to show what kind of buying organisation you are, because you'll get some that are just very, back questions away. But I don't see the point in that. I think if you can answer them helpfully, you can understand where the supplier's coming from and give them some help, then I think it helps that supplier think, yeah, this is a buyer that I want to work with. So that is the end of my presentation, but I am going to, as Fran says, quickly flip out into Fran, if you're ready. So here we are on PCS. I'll probably have been logged out. Yes, I have been because it's been a wee while. But so this is the screen that I did. So you can see in here I've got Highland and I've got current opportunity, and it's come up with lot 5, but there's lot 4 and the other lots are there as well. So if I click on that, you can see here, these are the different tabs that I was talking about. So you can see in here now, the good thing about this is when you get used to it, you can see, so there's a short description there. So they are looking for, it looks like 1 contractor per lot. It's divided into 6 lots. And it gives you an idea of the value of the different lots. So this one is £39,000. What I don't know is if that's an annual value or if that's over the life of the contract. So that might be a question that you would ask. Here's the different criteria that were talked about. So you've got must pay the real living wage, management and delivery methodology, management and delivery team, and sustainability, and then price is 30%. It's a 36 months contract. And here it tells you what your minimum is for each of the lots. So for example, employers 5 million, public 5 million. Okay, so it's an open procedure, and what that means is it's a 1-stage procedure. So it's not you do your SPD now, and if you're shortlisted, you get invited to do it again. But it's a 1-stage process. So from this, I've looked at this and I say, yeah, I'm interested in this. I definitely want to deliver this contract for High. I'm going to record my interest. So then it asks me to log in. Yes, you can see now the documents that are there, and I'll just save those documents. It says I've registered interest, and I get an email actually to confirm I've registered my interest. So usually down at the bottom. So here's all the ones I've recorded interest in. If I click on here, then you can see that I've got the same tabs, but the difference is I've now got a documents tab. So I can go into documents and I can download them. So you can download them all, or you can go individually. Now, interestingly, here's the numbers. So we've had 4, 5, 6 downloads already. I can click on here to see questions and answers. There are no questions. Nobody's asked any questions yet. You can ask a new question. You can go in there and ask a new question. Like I said, you can withdraw your interest anytime. So if you decide this is not for you, then you withdraw your interest, asks you for a reason, and you can be honest. Either you decided it's something you can't provide, you don't have time to do the tender, or tender's too onerous, or whatever the reason is. But anything that you put in there will be really helpful to the buying organisation. So in this case, I'm going to go to the post box because I want to show you this SPD. So what it does is, what's at the top? So you can see in here, and it says create. So this is where you create your post box. Go in here, and you can see in here, it's got your basic information, but you generate your SPD response there. So this is when it's built into PCS, that's how you generate it. Once you've got all the documents you need to complete, so your quality response, your pricing response, the forms that need to be done and signed, then what you would do is go in here, and I would put, say, pricing, choose a file, and what that does is it goes to browse your documents, and then you click add. And the good thing is you can see them down here. So you can see I don't have any documents attached, but once I've clicked add, I can. And then in here, I usually just put, your dear Hi, please find attached my response. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. When you generate your SPD response, it's a fairly straightforward process. It can take a wee while to start. So you can see up here, there's different, you've sort of got like a front sheet, which is what this is. before it takes you into the actual questions, but you just keep filling in what you can and just go next, next, next. Just remember to save it as you go. And then at the end of it, once you've completed it, you can submit it, and then you'll find that it's actually there in your post box as a submitted response. I'm not going to do that, but it is a slightly different place that it takes you to compared to your other one. So once you have finished your SPD and uploaded all your documents, then you would go to your postbox. Go to this again. Go to postbox. Now you'll see this time it's not create because I've already created it, so it's edit and dispatch. So this is where I would then go in and upload more documents. So I tend to actually, if I've finished the pricing, I'll put it in. If I've finished my forms, I'll put it in, and then think, right, the only things left is the quality. And if you've done your little one pager, like I said, then you can go back and say, these are all the documents I've got to attach. Tick them off as you do them. Once you've done that and you're satisfied you've got everything there, then this is where you click dispatch. If you're doing them one by one as you do them, then you can do save and exit. And just come back to it another time, but always remember to save if you're putting things in. Otherwise, what will happen is it won't save them. You'll add them. If you don't save it and you exit or you're timed out, then they won't be there the next time you go in. So it's really important that you save, and then you just dispatch it. The good thing is you get a notification that it's been dispatched. So because that's always a worry, is you're sort of thinking, did I dispatch it? Have I dispatched